Morning, habari za asubuhi. I think I'm correct. How are you, everyone? Good. Are you good? Cool. My name is Mandel Joseph Shabama. I hope some of you know me. If you don't know me, you're gonna know me at the very end of the day. But I'm gonna make sure that this is a very wonderful day for you as we welcome the International Cultural Diversity Festival for 2020. Are you all excited? Okay. One thing that I would likely guarantee to you is you might see these very empty seats, but we're going to make sure that at the very end of the day, they have to be full. Do we agree on that? Okay, now we're going to start our program. Sorry to delay you a bit. We're going to start our program, and just to give you a vibe of a start, we're going to welcome the Qwaqwa campus gospel choir to bless us with a wonderful item of a welcoming song. Are you all ready for that? Gospel choir, Yenzi, over to you. Okay, thank you to the Qwaqwa campus gospel choir. And I just want to say, I keep on saying this for some reason, but they're very new. And the person who is mainly conducting them and doing most of the work behind everything is Uyens. Uyens is the current SLC for Arts and Culture. There she goes there. But yeah, it just shows how many things can we achieve if we dedicate ourselves and make sure that we keep pushing until we get what we want. But yeah, I always say, be safe. Don't say do anything for what you want. Some of the other things, they might end you, in someone's office that I'm looking at right now. Weird enough, I'm gonna now welcome the very same person I just spoke about to come and give us welcoming remarks for this very auspicious occasion. And it's no other than the very famous man on campus, our campus principal, Dr. Mandel.
Nimen hao. Somebody at least knows a bit of Chinese Mandarin. That was good morning, everybody. Sanbona. Sanbona. Dumelang she. Good morning. Absheni. Guten Morgen, Herr Doctor. Wie geht es Ihnen? Good. Buongiorno. Come sta? Va bene. Mr. Program Director, it is my pleasure to stand here this morning. I'm most honored and proud to welcome all of you. I have the easiest task on the program. It is to welcome each and every one of you. But you know, not all animals are equal, right? So if I don't mention your name, it's just because of the animal farm reality that we live in. So I'm going to mention a few people, not because they are more important, but because they represent the leadership of the university and our speakers this morning. So allow me, therefore, Program Director, to observe the protocol, to welcome our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Francis Peterson. If you don't give him a round of applause. For those of you who don't know Professor Peterson, he comes from the Western Cape. So part of his culture, cultural heritage, is the wine heritage. For those of you who still don't know Prof. Peterson well, he's a chemical engineer by profession. Yeah? Laba manda bahlakaniphile. Bana babuhlala. For those of you who come from KwaZulu-Natal, you may remember the Thor chemical factory debacle and disaster in KwaZulu-Natal. Prof. Peterson was part of the team that went to look into that and investigate that, I don't know, whatever. I think the factory closed since, Prof? Yes. A lot of pollution and so forth. And Prof. Peterson has worked in the private sector as well, so he's a very highly experienced person, and we are very happy to, lucky to have a leader of his caliber. Not only is a strong academic leader, but who brings a wealth of experience and connections and a network from the private sector. The second person I'd like to welcome this morning is our keynote speaker, Dr. Mahasanay. Then I'd like also to welcome Mr. Mashaba, who will speak on the side of the international students. And then Mr. Kunene will speak on behalf of the local kind of situation. Both Mr. Mashamba and Mr. Kunene are in the campus Student Representative Council, so they are leading by example. Thank you. Another round of applause. I have to welcome Dr. Cornelius Hagen-Meyer, who is our Senior Director for Internationalization.
It's a promotion, not yet. Director.
In my heart you are. It doesn't come with a salary increase. And his very able team, Ms. Bulela Qwaqwa, there she is, who, with the other colleagues in the international office, colleagues, can you please just stand up for that? We can see all the colleagues from the international office. Thank you. And then I'd like to welcome the campus coordinator for internationalization, Dr. Peterson Dube. Dr. Peterson Dube. And then, of course, I'd also like to welcome our local organizing committee. I was part of that committee, but not too hands-on, from a distance. Our own MC as well, Mr. Shabangu, Ms. Jabulile.
Still organizing.
She's still organizing, and there's others. So we had our own local organizing committee as well to put this thing together. So we welcome all of those people. And the most important part is that we welcome each and every one of you. No, we are using If we can just wait a minute, you know, it takes a bit of time to switch over. Thank you. The switch over is less than 2 minutes. So it's not a disaster at all. Of course, I almost forgot to welcome our other member of the team, Miss Nonsidiso Qwaqwa. She's our communications and yes. And I'd like to welcome everybody this morning. Don't be surprised that the room looks a bit empty. It's because most of our lecturers and students are in lectures. You know, Monday is jam-packed. We're actually even lucky to get this venue. So they will join us as the day goes on. Thank you very much. I have a question. How do you know what is your culture? No, don't say just because I'm Sotho, therefore my culture is Sotho. Or I'm Zulu, therefore my culture is... How do you really know what is your culture? Your culture is in the language you dream in. Really, because it means your subconscious and your not subconscious and everything expresses your being and your existence. So if uma upupa ngesingisi, how lora kasikhuwa, as ye and Sesotho droom, when you dream in Shanghai, that is your culture. Right? It's a wonderful day to celebrate our culture and cultural exchange. You know, having studied in an international setup, we always treasured these kinds of days because we would really go back to our roots, focus on exchanging who we are with others, talk about our culture, but more than anything, that international setup, Africans have to put together an item, you know? And it will be so difficult because if there's only 2 of you from South Africa, it's difficult to put something together. So we would go together as groups and meet together with people from other parts of the continent and put something together which speaks to all of us. And that was always an interesting and a very nice exercise to do that. The best was when we teamed up with Indian students and having to fuse the Indian and the African cultures with the African cultures being a little bit more on the aggressive kind of, I don't know what, on the hard side rather than the, no, not aggressive, on the harder side of expressing. You have to teach the Indian students to do it and so forth. And then you have to learn to do those soft Indian types of dance of movement and to try and fuse that. So it was an interesting exercise to try and do that. But guess which one was our most favorite cultural exchange? Dr. Hagenmeyer, I'm sure you can guess.
No, you have many. You have
No,
many.
I'll tell you, it was Oktoberfest.
Oh, and I've never been there.
The Oktoberfest, beer flows like it's nobody's business. The beer companies are never short of beer and of plying students with beer and food and these sausages and all sorts of sausages. That was the most favorite part. If there's no German students there, you go and get them from another university, they must come and sponsor an Oktoberfest component to the intercultural exchange. I'm looking forward to the deliveries of the various perspectives on intercultural exchange, especially when it comes to higher education. And I'm very happy, Chairperson, to hand back to you. And I wish everybody a very pleasant morning. And we're supposed to have fun. I was very happy, which meant you caught the spirit. So participate as much as you can in this festival. You are not there just to sit. You know, in our culture, You never sit. You have to participate and exchange. Thank you very much, Program Director. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin Mandel, as it's called. Some people, you know, they like English principal. But hey, we move, right? And one thing that excites me, principal, today is that, you know, where we are seated, it looks like I'm the only person who has a position. I'm the director or something. Unlike, you know, guests who are guests, but it's fine. Now let's move, and I'm gonna present someone. Some of you know him. You know, very interesting person, this one. But here's a bit about him. Dr. Mahasanay is a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Education in the University of the Free State. He currently serves as an academic head in the Department of Education Management, Policy and Comparative Education. He holds a PhD in Education Management, Policy and Comparative Education, which he obtained from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in 2015. At the University of the Free State, he lectures undergraduate and postgraduate student modules for education management, leadership, and comparative education. His research interest is in education management, leadership, and school violence. He is a principal investigator in the National Research Foundation funded research project that focuses on leadership and management practices for addressing school violence in South Africa and Lesotho. Some of the postgraduate students he supervises are co-investigators in his research project. As part of Engaged Scholarship, he facilitates leadership and school violence workshops targeted at learner leadership in secondary schools around Qwaqwa. But most importantly, he's my supervisor. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the first person to give us, you know, a bit about the principles of intercultural education in higher educational institution. I present to you, I'm not obviously giving a PhD, but hey, I present to you Dr. Sekitse Mahasanay.
Thank you, Mr. Program Director. And the good thing after when your seniors talk, then you have a perfect ingredient for you. And I will just start by just saying all protocol observed. As the campus principal has done, then what I have been asked to do is to talk about the principles of intercultural education in higher education. And I want to ensure that I make this presentation to be a more practical and not academic presentation. And let me just provide some background, just a brief background by Program Director, if you allow me. A few years back, as a new lecturer, I had a lecture about education management and teaching BEd honor students, a very interesting group. And in the lecture, with what I was presenting during the lecture, the students were very active, contributing to the lecture and bringing their own experience. Because in the BEd honors program, then we have teachers that are teaching in schools, most of them. We also have perhaps few students that will just join BEd honors program after they have graduated for BEd or for PGC. And I thought to myself that was one of my best lectures, and I was very happy. But then, after the lecture, then there were two students that followed me to the office. Then one student then came in and asked me to say, he said, I like education management, but what was happening in that class? All those students that contributed to discussion, why are they talking about their work issues? I have just graduated and I don't know about what is happening in schools, but now they are talking about what is happening in their schools. And then after I have made these particular students aware that with the theory that we discuss, experience is also important, and he understood, but what he made me aware of was that what those other students were talking about he was not familiar with. And then the second student also came here and said to me, I like education management, I think I am in the wrong university. And I said, why? He said, no, I'm not from South Africa. But all the students that participated there, they were bringing examples from South Africa, and I'm not familiar with that. And lots of abbreviations, SMT, SGB, and so on and so forth. But then, after I've engaged with these students, then I realized that this is a call to me now to say, university space is a space where we have people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, from different racial groups, with different languages, with different perspectives, with different worldviews. And all of them, if you are in a lecture, then you have them in one space. And the challenge is, with the kind of dialogue that you have with them, how do you make sure that all of them are accommodated? Not saying that you should not be aware of the differences. The differences are there, but then how do you then embrace those differences? And having laid that background to discuss the principles of intercultural education, I will draw from the guidelines by UNESCO 2006, which are widely cited in literature. And the UNESCO suggests 3 main principles that can guide intercultural education. The first one is that intercultural education respects the cultural identity of the students through the provision of culturally appropriate and responsive quality education for all. So, in the education space, in the university space, whether it is in the classroom, whether it's outside this classroom, what should happen is that the cultural identity of different community members that we have should be respected. The second principle is intercultural education provides all students, my emphasis on the word all, with the cultural knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to achieve active and full participation in society or in the community. And within the community or society, let's understand that you can have the local society or the local community, you have the international community also. So, the students therefore, or whoever is in the space of the higher education, then should have cultural knowledge, attitudes, and skills that will enable him or her to actively participate in the society. Then the third principle is that intercultural education provides all the students with the cultural knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, to enable them to contribute to respect, to understanding, and solidarity among individuals, regardless of differences in terms of ethnic group, socially, cultural, religious, and so on and so forth. And drawing from all these 3 principles, What stood out now is the whole idea of dialogue, empathy, education solidarity, education for intercultural respect, and education against the nationalist way of thinking. And now if you want to discuss the implication for this, if you talk about curriculum, those that plan curriculum, they have their own culture, their own worldview, their own understanding, their own beliefs, which therefore influences them on what should go into curriculum. But the most important thing is for all of us to be aware of intercultural education so that when planning or for curriculum or when planning for university activities, then we are aware of diversity. We are aware of cultural differences. Then we are aware of that our students come from different cultures. Our students also come from different countries, and they have that cultural knowledge, which then we have to find a way of embracing that culture. If we have to take an example of that introductory part that I took, it also translates on how then in the classrooms then what is taught, how it is taught, which methods are used, and then whether such methods now can embrace the differences. So if you draw from that example that I took, where we have students now, the local students who are the majority, the international students, but also local students who have no experience. Then within that space, and then when you teach them, it also indicates that all those students should be given a chance to relate the content or discussion to their own context, to their own experience, to their own cultural identity. Also, it also translates to what is chosen, the content that we choose to learn, the books that we choose. One of the interesting stories now is about, I think, I don't teach history, but now when I was going around the schools, I was privileged this year now to observe our student teachers teaching history. And then, as I was listening to what they were saying about the history of Africa, and then I just said I want to see who has written the textbook, because what they were saying to me then was different from the history that I know. And then when I checked now, I realized that okay, the books that they are using then the writers now, perhaps the writers now are writing about the history that they cannot associate with it, interpreting the cultures that they don't have the cultural capital to interpret them. But that is the history that is taught. Having said that, Mr. Program Director and the university community, thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Mahasanay. And just for some of you who might be having questions, we're going to have some time a bit later on for those questions and probably a couple of answers and comments from the panel here. But just to take a very quick break, but you know how we break here. So when we break, we have we more a slogan of interest to the students. And now I'm going to welcome, I'm not sure if Tumelo is here. Tumelo, okay, he's here. Tumelo, are you ready to bless us with something? Okay, he's smiling. So I guess he's ready. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome, I just call him Utumelompuli. He's gonna, I don't even have to announce him. He's gonna do justice to announce himself. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Mpuli, any that you like. And by the way, Mr. Mpuli is a wonderful poet and a wonderful writer. So if you are loving people, keep watching.
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? I'm fine. By the way, my name is Tumelo Tandrenko Simbuli, the student from here. Okay, so today the theme of the day is diversity and multicultural. Okay, fine. So I think we need to redefine history. I think we need to redefine humanity. I think we need to redefine culture. As I'm standing in front of you, parallel to the wall, perpendicular to the ground, I stand my ground and ask you, who said you can define me? I mean, like, who said you can define me? I ask yet again, are you defining or are you denying my rights? Despite your views about me, have you ever viewed the good in me? Don't be deceived by what you desire. If my attire fools you, then screw you and sue you, cause you choose to enforce stereotypes to my type. I mean, like, have you ever tried and end up crying because this is turning into dehumanizing, which is tying us to the oppression and suffering of being undermined by the positively defined. So I refuse to let them slide to my mind. Let me tell you my side, cause you've challenged my pride. Therefore, step aside, I will slide like the ocean tides. Let me left it piped to my lungs, damages my pride. Who said you can define me? Who said you can recite me? I am me. You say what I feel, not what you think about me. Feel me. You cannot define me. 2022, Qwaqwa, Campus University of the State. We are redefining culture, redefining humanity, redefining Ubuntu. Thank you for your time. To be honest, I don't know how long do I have in front of you guys, but I have another poem that I would like to recite for you guys. Would you give me the opportunity? Okay, this one is the closing statement. It goes by the title of the dead eye. The dead eye. I mean, like, I want you to ignite the power of this hour. Then forget about this world is sour. You, the light, chose the fight, now you play your part. Remember, we are redefining culture. Now you play your part. Down your heart to find this art, which is going to bend everybody part. This is art, this is you, that was who. Your mind is in a different state in this space, just in case that was in space. Because your mind capabilities, it lies in what's happening in the city. So it's a pity, it's 50-50 out there. Okay, let me make you understand. Not to make you spend, but to make you send money home for building sand. Your blessing will ascend, you will add a lifetime spend. Don't mind me, I'm a kite, I'm free, no space is tight, cause I've asserted my fight. So you, play your part. The third eye, redefining humanity, redefining history, redefining culture. I am Tumelo Tandrenko Simbuli.
Thank you very much to Tumelo Tandrenko Simbuli, the poet. It was, sometimes you get lost along the way, but then they bring you back again. It's weird. But hey, there's some principle, they normally say, don't try this at home. You might end up saying certain other things about hey. Love that guy. Let's move along to, again, some of the interesting things that we've been hearing from the platform. We're now going to move to a more student perspective kind of a thing, like Principal said. And the person I'm gonna introduce now is gonna be giving us a student's perspective on intercultural education in higher education institution, and again, a local student perspective. And this person is the current Universal Access and Social Justice Counselor and a former Policy and Transformation Counselor for the University of the Free State Qwaqwa Campus, Student Representative Counselor. He goes by the name of Counselor Unene Simbiwe.
I don't know what I can stand. Yes. Culturally, when addressing an esteemed audience, it is demanded of me that I stand. So I'm standing because I respect you. It shows respect where I'm from. So allow me to greet from Peterson, to greet the campus principal, to greet all staff members, fellow students, my colleague, my boss from A-STEP. You are all greeted. So I'd like to open with a quote. It's an African proverb really, because no one really knows who said it, where did it come from, but at least today we know that it exists. And it says that a stranger sees only what he knows. And if you are going to look at me with something you already know about me, you're going to see only that which you know. And this is particularly important because the example that I'm going to make now is perhaps one that we can all relate to, because it is local, and they say local is legal, right? The Bapedi. If you look at the Bapedi people, their traditional attire has a Scottish kilt. They actually wear Scottish kilts as part of their attire. And if you're going to take me from KwaZulu-Natal, having never met a Pedi person before, I'm going to see womanhood. Because if you wear a skirt in my culture, it symbolizes that you are a woman. But if you go to the Bapedi, it symbolizes a historical event, one of historical significance. Does any one of us know what that event was? Why the Bapedi ended up wearing Scottish kilts as part of their attire? Okay, fine. Because of time, we're just going to move along. Many years ago, during the Umfetane Wars, or the Wars of Dispossessions, there was a war between the Bapedi and the British. So their last war, the one that they lost, the British, they told the Scottish men to go to the front. And if you know Scotland, you'd know that Scottish men wear the Scottish kilts. And when the king, the Bapedi king, saw these men wearing skirts, he said, do not attack the beautiful women, but attack the men behind them. So as the Bapedi went into war, they were not aware that the people in the front were actually wielding guns. And that's how they lost the war. And in remembrance, they decided that we shall wear these kilts to memorize that event when we were fooled and lost the war. And that is why I say a stranger only sees what he knows. Had the king known that this was normal in Scotland, he would have known that those people were men. And this now brings us to the local cultural context to which I'm going to be speaking about today. And I know that some of you are surprised as to why I'm carrying this. And I don't want you to be threatened. It's not a weapon, although it looks like one. I'm going to ask, because I'm a teacher, and Dr. Mahasanay here has taught me that to keep your class engaged, you speak to the children. Not that you are children of mine, but I speak to the audience. What do we think this is for? I hear some are saying this is a feather duster. This isn't a feather duster, and it isn't used for cleaning, and it isn't used also for fighting. This is an object that symbolizes coming of age. As men, particularly in my culture, as we progress through the years, there is a year when we come of age, where you get this, and a small nyana shield that is used for traditional dances and stuff. But as you grow older, in the days of King Shaka, Prof, you'll be joining what we call Upa Simba. You get a much more bigger nobgir, a spear, and a bigger shield. But we are not here for a history lesson now. We are just here for the cultural perspective in terms of us as local students. I believe that in spaces like this one, in spaces for higher education and learning, we are not doing enough to ensure that there is understanding, to ensure that there is acceptance, to ensure that there is tolerance. Because what is acceptable in my culture might not necessarily be acceptable in yours. But understanding brings acceptance. If you know why I do what I do, you'll be able to accept that it is a part of me. And language forms a very huge part, or I would say it's one of the most defining aspects of what culture is and what your culture is. Because the moment it's all born, you already know that. Because culture, our culture, is changing. It is an ever-changing process, and historical events, they actually shape our culture. People think that one day someone woke up and decided that, you know, we're going to wear this pant, and that's our thing now. That's a Zulu thing. But that's not how it is. And the way we perceive other people locally, and us, we struggle amongst ourselves because of how the apartheid government structured our country before. Where you will find that there was just this Bantustan here, and the Qwaqwa Bantustan that had Sotho-speaking people. There was the Zululand, there was another one in the north in Limpopo, and all of these people were culturally isolated, which denied us the understanding of one's culture. And if I look at you today, I don't understand you. So universities now have a much bigger role to play in ensuring that when I walk into the space and I come across someone who's wearing a Scottish kilt, I am able to hold a very firm dialogue without me feeling that I will offend the next person. And that is understanding and acceptance. Because if I feel like I have to walk straight on this line, I will not understand you because I'm avoiding dialogue and I'm avoiding interaction. And that is something that we are doing in our cultures. We come here to study, we meet here, I don't know you. After we are done, I go back to KwaZulu-Natal where I feel comfortable, where I understand everything, and I rest in confidence that I know what I know. But universities have a mission to break down those barriers between us and the locals, because ourselves as local students, we don't understand each other. And now if we're going to bring now other people from other countries with even more diverse cultures, it's a recipe for disaster. Because in an event where we are saying, group yourselves, you'll see Zulus grouping themselves with other Zulus, because you might find that I identify you as slightly less of what I am. So I'm going to identify with my group, you're going to identify with yours. We will never come to a point where we say, we are but human. Like this class before us. It comes in many different colors. There's blue, there's pink, there's purple. But in the most basic sense, it is all but grass. Differentiated by color. And that is what it takes to be human, and that's what it takes to be us. Our culture is all but just a defining factor of where you come from, what do you represent, who you are. But in the most basic sense, we are but human. So in closing, Prof, I'd like to just be grateful that we have such dialogues, that we are able to talk about such things, and we are able to express or project our cultural differentness to the other person. And they're able to reflect on whether or not this space is growing them culturally as much as it grows them academically. And I will close by a quote from head of state Nelson Mandela that says, "The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement." With these words, I thank everyone.
Thank you very much to Councillor Lunene for a very thoughtful piece that you just shared. Now, I now have more questions then, you know, pity I'm not allowed to ask questions. You know, the downfalls of being a program director. Now I understand, you know, why some people in management, they are unable to say certain things. You can't. You have to mitigate things, man. But again, it's fine. I know principal is going to ask that question for me. Let's move now. Again, I said that we're looking at a more student perspective now. This is, yes, again, another student. And by the way, Mr. Gnene is the, I think, am I safe to say current? I mean, you're left with a couple of days, but you're still the current Secretary General of the UFS. So you enjoy the remaining 14 days, I guess. Now we're moving to the next student speaker. It's going to focus on a student's perspective on intercultural education in a higher education institution. And again, an international student's perspective is going to be. And this person is the long-standing International Student Councillor and is the current chairperson for the International Students Council of the University of Free State Qwaqwa campus. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Councillor Mashamba Tapiwanashi.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for that. I would be happy to think that most of you did not know that I'm an international student, which would be actually a good step forward, given the, you know, the dynamics that we have. You know, our society has this tendency of allowing us to judge people, and unfortunately, in my culture, unlike Mr. Kumenes, when I'm addressing people of high esteem, I'm not supposed to see this part of your head ever. I can't. It's part of our culture. But we'll move. So if you're going to learn two things today, it will be these two phrases. Of course, I would want you to remember my speech and all of that, but if you're going to learn these two things, I think I would be happy, especially when I meet you on campus. Naturally, would greet you saying, Mamuka say. That's what I would say to you if you'd understand Shona. Then your response will be Tamuka Rakanaka. Given that the audience is many of you, say Tamuka Rakanaka. You know, I would really want you to remember that phrase when you meet me on campus. And I can see all your faces. I am going to say it to you guys. So be on the lookout, yeah? So the next thing that now becomes of fascination is this idea of language. Right now, I have just taught you a phrase. If I say Mamuka say, what do you say? Yes, Tamuka Zakanaka. Thank you very much. So now you would now start to think, what other phrases can I learn in Shona? The other very famous phrase we have in our country is Chicha Chirimurutsoka. You understand? Chicha Chirimurutsoka. And that becomes something that became more apparent to me as an international student. That loosely translates to what is new is in the foot, okay? But obviously a correct translation will be new things comes to those who travel, okay? So on arriving to South Africa, by the way, I've been here for a couple of years. I think this is my 7th year on this campus. I had an opportunity to go to Bloemfontein, I think 2nd year, but I was scared because of the cultural shock that I had just on arriving on the Qwaqwa campus. Thinking of going to a bigger campus scared me. I was of the illusion that I might be the only one. Given that Free State was mostly given this state, I thought it was going to be more Zulus and Sotho-speaking people, which was scarier because now it's just more of them in numbers. So I chose to stay on this campus, but unfortunately, my numbers, part of my numbers as an international student never grew. And that's one of the biggest things we have here on the Qwaqwa campus, that right now when you look around, that chairs are empty. The people who are supposed to be most prevalent in this room was going to be the international students, but we don't have them. Because for some reason they choose either to leave this campus to Bloemfontein, or we are not putting more of an active role in actually inviting students to this campus. I think last year we had, during my first term in SSC, we had the issue of having to define the whole thing of main campus, Qwaqwa campus, you know, South campus. If people had that idea of just saying Qwaqwa campus is part of the UFS, as a collective, it's part of the UFS, no one would feel the need to move to a different campus, if you get my point of view on that. And it would allow our community here as international students to grow. You know, it was fascinating in my first years having to approach people, and they think I'm Zulu, which again is a good thing. They'll think I'm Zulu, good thing. But then when I start speaking and then they hear the accent, the first thing that comes to mind is what you guys would call a chiss boy. I think that's what they call them. So from the accent, they think, he thinks he's better than us to some extent, because they think I'm part of them, which I'm glad to be, but not in that context, which is now putting me in a point where I'm looking down on other people. So it's very important now to say, what role does interculturalization have in our realm, especially here on Qwaqwa campus? Obviously, at large on the UFS campus, we need to actually now ask those questions. Is it important to adopt those cultural views and perspectives and actually incorporate them in our academics? And the answer is pretty obvious, at least to me. The answer should be yes. We need to do that. It's important for you to come from a school where there are Nigerian-speaking people, not Nigerian, I'm thinking there's Yoruba people, they have a different dialect altogether, you know, and Chinese people, because I also see myself coming to a point where I'm an international counsel, but I never think of it in the sense that I will meet an international student who is white, for instance. So all of those things are very important to actually bring us to that definition of interculturalization. So let's think about it in this sense. You cannot come from a university that has Sotho-speaking people, not being Sotho and not be able to at least talk to someone in a Sotho, Sotho setting, like have a conversation. And as such, me being Shona, by the way, I'm Shona, not Ndebele, which is what some people already assume when you tell them I'm Zimbabwean. The first thing is, are you from Bulawayo? Then you're like, no, I'm from Harare. And there's all these views about what that means and what kind of background you may be coming with and all of that. But then again, back to the thing of interculturalization, we need to be able to have these platforms where we can all appreciate each of our cultures. Like, really appreciate. The choir, for instance, I was lucky to attend one of this year's graduations, and they sang one of the most popular songs in South Africa and Africa in general, and probably in the world, all of them Tukuzi. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, wow, these guys do realize there's a Shona-speaking person on campus, right? The lyrics were like a bit, on the left, but the point was, if they knew this, I love singing, but the barrier comes when it's time to go and approach, and you can hear the choir singing beautifully in Zulu or in Sotho. So it becomes a point of fear for me to say, how can I engage them without, and then without them being, how can I put this, having to go that extra step of sympathy to accommodate instead of being empathetic. That's the biggest problem we actually have in our universities. We try so much to accommodate with sympathy rather than being empathetic. To say we have differences, yes. Let's not come and pretend that those differences do not exist. It's okay. And I feel like that's the biggest problem that I've encountered having to integrate in South Africa specifically, because I came directly from Zimbabwe. I actually thought this was the main campus, by the way, when I arrived. I did not have an idea. It is. It is. Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So, given that now it's been a couple of years, and yes, sir, I do dream in English now, which is a bit problematic. And it's because of the constant need for me to speak English every time. And I was proud of myself when I was out with the SRC when they asked me to sing Ngosi Sikeleli Africa. And I said the lyrics in Zulu instead of in Shona. I had to translate myself from the South African language to my own language to say, what word is this? Which then shows that your culture is really about what you do every day, where you go to every day, who you interact with every day. So there's no need to clearly judge someone before and say they might not accept what I believe. It's very easy, actually. Give it time. We can easily all be integrated into one beautiful thing. Yes. So one thing that I need to say is that from an academic perspective, we need to really incorporate our languages. I have friends, I'm sorry I'm making this more of a testimonial than anything, but I have friends that know how to code brilliantly, but because there's no bridging between what they had to learn, like in terms of their language. They know their coding, but their languages, in terms of English, this person is going to struggle when it comes to going for an interview, for instance. So already that creates a really huge barrier for this person. So in that context, I feel like the university itself should find ways to interculturalize to a point that we bring up people who are intelligent, who are brilliant, but just lack maybe that concept of the English language, for instance. That becomes a problem. I have friends who've graduated, but the only barrier is between them and their employer, and the only thing missing there is English. You understand? So I feel like that's very important for us to look at perspectives like that, and then maybe help with the integration, just not of international students onto campus, but also just the local students going out into the workplace. And with that, I say thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mashamba. Now I'm thinking to myself, how do we therefore create a space of inclusivity without excluding others? When we embrace diversity, when we... Yeah, it's a question to myself again. So I was supposed to keep it to myself. But thank you for those words. You know, sometimes it's very interesting to hear a perspective from an actual person who actually lives that experience, unlike having to speak on a, on behalf of someone. But yeah, mashallah. Is Siobhan here?
Listening to you right now.
Okay, cool. Oh, hey, technology. Also,
Yes.
Dr. Dule,
Yes,
yeah, man.
I am your program director. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. I didn't realize
Can
that.
you,
Didn't realize
can you
that.
see me?
We can see you. Trust me, we can see you. Didn't realize that I'm on TV, people. Hey, yeah, it's nice here. But anyways, so there by the visual platform we have Miss Siobhan Slabby, who's the Chief Officer for the Office of International Affairs, and he's going to give us a bit of the importance of driving the understanding and teaching of intercultural skills and competencies in the higher educational institution. So, Mrs. Siobhan, rather, whenever you're ready, we are looking forward to see you there.
Thank you, program director. And let me just say, colleagues, it's a wonderful privilege to join you virtually. We are, of course, operating in a very technologically advanced society, and the fact that I'm able to join you virtually is, of course, a testament to that. So I'm going to say all protocol observed, and I, of course, wish I was there in person, but I'm here virtually now. So I've been given a task to talk about the importance of driving the understanding and teaching of intercultural skills, competencies in higher education. But I want to place the focus not just on the teaching part of these intercultural skills and competencies, but also the learning aspect and the unlearning that also needs to take place. So of course, I'm going to base some of my thoughts on a draft conceptual article that a colleague of mine and I are still working on. So these are just our rough thoughts looking at the plethora of research that currently exists in the field of intercultural competency development, virtual exchange, and COIL, etc. So I'm going to start by saying that in an ever-globalizing world, it has become commonplace for people to engage in intercultural interactions. And as such, there is an increasing need for graduates that will fit the cross-cultural, liberal, and technologically advanced societies. So the European Commission in 2017 did a study, and they have found that intercultural competency has become increasingly important as employers are requesting graduates that can work effectively within multicultural teams due to globalized markets. So now I ask myself the question, what is intercultural competence? And I feel that it is important to unpack what is meant by it, and of course, how do we develop it? How do we know that the graduates have developed these competencies? Well, when I surveyed the research, the field of ICC, which I will from henceforth refer to it in my talk, it is laden with conceptual ambiguity because I found that there was no singular or single accepted definition for ICC. This, of course, varies the definition according to your discipline, your terminology, so depending on which discipline, the definition will vary. But I would like to think that in the most basic sense, ICC basically describes as one's ability to effectively interact within different cultural settings. I particularly like the definition from Potala and Chain. They describe it as an individual's ability to achieve their communication goals while using appropriate communication behaviors to negotiate between different identities within a culturally diverse environment. However, another definition by Lopez and Rocha also articulate ICC as creating awareness of the interconnectedness of global issues, to consider different perspectives and understand dynamics of multicultural settings, to work and communicate more effectively in a globalized world, and in general, to function as responsible professionals in a changing global environment. Colleagues, I think that it's quite a laden term, there's a lot of loaded terminology and words in there. But I think that we can all attest to how the world changes. And with the pandemic, it happened without notice. We were not, prepared. And when I look at Spitzberg and Shannon, and thinking about there not existing a strict definition of ICC, they do find that they've obviously reviewed different classifications, and I recommend it for further reading. I mean, for anyone who's available, I can make the reference list available for further reading. But it's also become evident that it's easier to find a model that outlines intercultural competencies than a definition. And however, when surveying the models of ICC, there are three basic elements that almost always reflect. And it speaks on knowledge, attitude, skills/behavior. So if we look at these three basic elements, for the sake of time, I'm not going to obviously go into depth, but I want to bring in these three models in order to ground somewhat of an understanding of ICC. And so the first model I quickly want to speak to about is Dreydhoff's model. And this is a model that is often used in higher education, and she describes intercultural competency as the ability to communicate effectively and appropriately in intercultural situations based on one's intercultural knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So, apart from placing the emphasis on knowledge, skills, and attitudes, she further qualifies the words effective and appropriate. The former indicates that the person is conducting the interaction in such a way that the aims of interaction is met. The latter refers to the perception of the other party in the interaction. So only if they perceive the interaction as suitable can it be considered appropriate. Dreydhoff also further goes to expand and says that you must first gain new cultural knowledge about both your own and other cultures. This will eventually translate into skills which will lead to a changed behavior as one becomes more empathetic, adaptable, and flexible. Ultimately, this process will lead to more effective and appropriate interactions. However, researchers have also critiqued this model by trading off by saying that it focuses more on the interaction itself and neglects other aspects like challenging views, attitudes, and discriminatory behaviors. So Model 2 by Barrett provides an appropriate complement that bridges where Drayden focuses on just the interaction. Barrett's model brings in more the challenging views, the attitudes, and the discriminatory behaviors. That he defines it as values, attitudes, knowledge, understanding, skills, behaviors which are needed for understanding and respecting people who are perceived to be culturally different from oneself, interacting and communicating effectively and appropriately with such people, and establishing positive and constructive relationships with such people. So it is more about including values that will understand behavior, and not just my own, but somebody else's behavior from a different culture. He elaborates then by saying that ICC refers to both understanding and respecting cultural difference. Now, our two student counselors spoke about being empathetic and recognizing cultural difference. And the importance of a positive and a constructive relationship. So Barrett's model moves ICC from a two-way communication to challenging, ingrained, discriminatory, and exclusive behaviors. However, if you look at Drayden's model and Barrett's model, both of them still include knowledge, attitude, and skills. The third model by Brian, which is back in 1997, it's an older, more comprehensive model, but it contains, also the three elements of knowledge, attitudes, and skills. However, Brian actually expands a bit more on attitudes, and for him, he says, attitudes is a precondition for successful intercultural interaction. Your attitude should simply be more than just positive, but it should include openness and curiosity and the readiness to suspend disbeliefs about other cultures and beliefs about your own culture, and the ability to analyze from another person's point of view. I think that is so important, because in order for me to grow in my intercultural understanding of another culture, I need to be able to understand and learn it from that point of view, and not just look at it from my own cultural perspective. He defines knowledge as the individual to understand how their social identity has been formed. He qualifies skills and he identifies two distinct skill sets. He says there's one that is called the savoir comprendre, which is the ability to interpret and relate skills. And then he speaks about a skill set called savoir apprendre. So these are skills related to discovery and interaction, which is really the ability to acquire new knowledge and to operate the knowledge, attitude, and skills under the constraints of real-time communication and interaction. In addition to the three basic elements of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, Graham says that you also need to be critically, culturally aware. The ability to evaluate critically on the basis of explicit criteria, perspectives, practices, and products in one's own and other cultures and countries. To a certain extent, I agree with Graham that intercultural competency contains more than simply effective and appropriate interaction, but that it relies heavily on one's ability to be critically aware of other cultures. In summary, it is clear from all three models that intercultural competency is not an inborn trait, but it is a competency that is acquired over time, exposure, and conscious effort. So you need to, and it is also something that is cultivated lifelong. It is an intentional developmental process. The level then to which one acquires these skills will rely on your attitude and of course certain inborn traits. So if I am a naturally open person, if I'm a naturally curious person, it's going to sort of advance along how I interculturally develop my competency. But colleagues, ICC can also only take place within a learning environment that purposefully facilitates this. So this then brings me to how do we develop intercultural competencies. As we've seen with the pandemic, there's definitely going to be a need for us as a university to include more virtual exchanges and quill practices in our current blend or mode of delivery. As I've mentioned, ICC is a developmental process, and there's a lot of theories that surround it. So of course, when I read on about it, I found that the developmental model for intercultural sensitivity is called the DMIS model by Bennett, is a very comprehensive model. The underlying assumption of this model is that with increased experience of cultural difference, a person moves from a monocultural worldview to a view where different cultures are equally valid. And Councillor Kunene actually mentioned that in his reflection. In terms of developing intercultural competency, I suggest this model by DMIS becomes a starting point to be used in higher education. It certainly can inform our virtual engagement practices by realizing that within any given group, there will be students within all these stages. So obviously, there's the stages in the DMIS model. But we cannot assume any student's cultural awareness or understanding or their individual tolerance for ambiguity and difference. I think we need to start there. We cannot assume that all students are going to be the same. So then, we spoke about developing it. So then how would you assess if somebody is interculturally competent or that they've grown in their intercultural competencies? Again, a contentious nature surrounds intercultural competency assessment. In fact, there's a significant lacuna in research related to ICC assessment. When we were reviewing the reports and the literature, a bulk of the studies relied almost exclusively on self-report instruments. Now, of course, we could have missed a few. Like I said, this is only a developmental article. It's not yet published. But it only relies on self-report instrumentation. So students feeling that their perception that they've grown, but there's no way to actually really back up that finding. So in a sense, there's a need, I feel, for a mixed method approach to determine ICC development, where participant perceptions can be further explored and verified. So this then brings me to my concluding remarks. If you're looking at intercultural competencies and internationalization, I think the first thing is that we need to debunk the assumption that ICC development is a natural byproduct of internationalization activities. Because not all students will be given an opportunity to go on a physical student mobility. But then what we also need to bring in is we need to bring in the virtual exchange engagement, is to say, through our internationalization initiatives, how do we ensure that all our students get access to an internationalized learning opportunity? Looking at Hans de Wit's definition of internationalization of higher education, It's the most famous definition, which he says is the intentional process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, and delivery of post-secondary education in order to enhance the quality of education and research for all our students and staff to make a meaningful contribution to society. This definition focuses on the intentionality and focuses actually on the humanistic possibilities such as global citizenship, mutual understanding, intercultural competence, awareness, and tolerance. This definition by David also includes internationalization of higher education in that it expands and says that we need to make a meaningful contribution to society. I found a wonderful definition by Garcelle A. Villard that supports this making a meaningful contribution to society, because she defines the values that should be pursued in the internationalization of higher education by saying that the international curriculum should therefore focus on developing in university graduate respect for humanity's difference and cultural wealth, as well as a sense of political responsibility, turning them into defenders of democratic principles of their society and true architects of social change. I found that to be very, very beautiful. Linking back to the topic, the importance of driving the understanding and teaching of intercultural competencies in higher education, my thoughts are as follows. If we look at how diverse our South African context is, we have 11 official cultures, we've got so many cultures, 12 official languages. We need to start growing our own timber. Comrade Kunene says, we cannot even interact with our respective cultures here, let alone what happens when we bring in different cultures from the north, from the east, from the west. We need to look at, are our graduates, firstly, interculturally competent to even communicate with our unique South African context and within the unique South African workplace? We need to develop globally competent graduates. I often feel that the focus is too much on global. Our graduates need to be globally competitive, yes, but they also need to be locally relevant. Linking back to the Garcelle definition, we need to be true architects for social change. And how are we going to do that if we cannot even make a meaningful contribution to our local societies? We need them to be true architects for social change. They need to make meaningful contributions to society within the local context before we even look at the globe. We need to look at ways of including more virtual exchange or COIL programs into our curriculums, because these are interventions that through time, like we've heard in the presentation, that it is a developmental process. It is a competency that is cultivated. It's not an inborn trait. We need to gradually introduce more collaborative online international learning initiatives, virtual exchange initiatives, so that students can collaborate more with students from different cultures using virtual technology, because as we've seen, being able to collaborate and work effectively in a virtual space is of equal importance, to be globally competent, but also to be relevant within industry. We need to look at, to start looking at intentionally including initiatives that will help develop these competencies. In terms of the UFS, it is our responsibility to make sure that our graduates will succeed, that we prepare them for the workplace, that we prepare them for the globe. But we need to be able to determine for ourselves, what does an interculturally competent graduate from the UFS look like? And then we need to make sure that we intentionally include interventions that will help us to cultivate these competencies within our graduates. In closing, colleagues, I think we all have a responsibility. And in terms of intercultural competencies, I think we really need to become effective global citizens, and not just effective global citizens, because the local context is equally important. And this is where I feel higher education institutions can make the most meaningful impact and help to cultivate these competencies within our graduates. Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you for your time and for listening.
Thank you very much, Shivwan. You know, the problem of being there in social media, I almost said, let's go to our social media platform and see the comments. Some people are busy sending texts here about it. You see, the thing of being live on TV is a problem. But anyways, we'll skip that part. And because of time, I'm gonna try to be as brief as possible. This is a very long thing I'm saying in front of me here, but hey, I'm gonna try and read it as fast as possible, but make sure that you hear the bits and parts of it. The next person I'm gonna present is going to be speaking on the benefit of international cultural diversity on rural campuses, in the case of the Qwaqwa campus. And it's going to be Professor Peterson. Professor Peterson is Director and Vice Chancellor of the University of Free State, and he has been since the 1st of April 2017. He was formerly the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, the Dean for Engineering and Built Environment at the University of Cape Town, the Executive Head for Strategy at Anglo-American Platinum, Executive Vice President for Research and Development at Mintech, and the Head of Department for the Chemical Engineering Department at the Cape Technikon, which is now called the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. He obtained the degree of Bachelor in Engineering, Chemical Engineering, Masters in Engineering, and his PhD, again Engineering, at Stellenbosch University, and completed a short course on financial skills for executive management with the IIR training. He is the recipient of the NS Oppenheimer Memorial Trust and Cape Technikon Research of the Year Award. He is also a regular reviewer and serves on the editorial boards of various international journals. Professor Peterson has extensive experience on management at various levels within the university and industry sectors. He believes in teamwork and has played a key role in various initiatives within higher education, industry, and science councils. He is the founder of the first cohort of industry research organizations in the minerals and energy sector, the MNEG9, and has been actively involved in strategic planning with regards to research and development in the science and technology sector, joint venture formation, and scenario development. Professor Peterson serves on various national and international technical, editorial, and advisory committee, and he is actively involved in and has consulted widely to the South African engineering and the built environment industries. He published over 150 technical papers and conference proceedings in international journals. Again, the key word here, he believes in teamwork. I'm a team player, Professor Peterson. Just know that, you know. But ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Rector and Vice Chancellor of the University of Free State, Professor Francis Peterson, to give us his part on the benefit of international culture diversity on rural campuses and the case of the Qwaqwa campus.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. And I wanted to stop you. You guys just introduced me as the Rector and Vice Chancellor at the University of the Free State. But let me also take this opportunity to welcome our colleagues, students, and staff members invited guests in the audience, and also show my appreciation for the speakers on the stage, and also Siobhan. Siobhan probably already have disconnected, but if she's online, also for a wonderful presentation. So thank.
Just 2 minutes.
Think about time.
I think you are being sabotaged.
Yeah, it happens again. You know, we saw your own.
But I think principal, this is a norm now. I think we're only going to get worried if yesterday had something, because it's abnormal, it's not happening.
It's better than stage 6. Load shedding. Much better than stage 6.
I just wanted to check whether the sound is back. Yeah. Okay, it's back. So I want to thank you for the invitation to join you today in celebrating what we have heard as the international cultural diversity of our university. And then obviously today we are on the Qwaqwa campus. So on Wednesday we will have a similar event, and I want to emphasize to my colleagues at the Bloemfontein campus. We don't call the Bloemfontein campus the main campus anymore, because we one university with 3 campuses, and I think that's a narrative that we would like to convey on a continuous basis. So we will have that on Wednesday, and it is part of this whole international cultural diversity. But I think at a time when sentiments against people hailing from other nations are plaguing our country, we must remind ourselves of the value that the presence of colleagues, students, and community members from diverse backgrounds adds to our university, and obviously to the Qwaqwa community. I often say that anything that you discuss, anything that you develop, either as a solution or as a product, is going to be so much stronger if you have diverse inputs into that product or process or a debate, because that for me is critical. And therefore, at the heart of this international cultural diversity is the strength that it contributes to any scenario, to our university, to society, as Siobhan have indicated, and to where there are challenges that we need to resolve. You all would agree with me that many social challenges that we have, and you've got a fantastic research unit here on Qwaqwa campus, our research unit of the University of the Free State, and the ARU, that work on diverse areas, from public health to biodiversity, to community engagement, to resource management. And the strength of that unit is the fact that it's multidisciplinary in nature, that you have a lot of input that coming from different disciplines. And for me, when our graduates, when you leave the University of the Free State to enter the work of world, that multidisciplinary engagement, the teamwork, the exposure of internationalization is going to be so crucial to take with you, because that is what's going to be expected from the workplace. So I just wanted to emphasize that point. So in my presentation, I will discuss the benefit of, as the program director has indicated, the international cultural diversity for a rural-based university campus and campuses, because we are not only talking about Qwaqwa, and reflect on how it has contributed to the growth and transformation in this particular context on the Qwaqwa campus. So I want to emphasize that the University of the Free State is committed to internationalization, which connects us to the global knowledge and drive research and innovation at our university. And we aim to ensure that every student have an international experience, Now, once again, as Siobhan has indicated, that your international experience, probably before COVID, the international experience was always physical mobility. Get on a plane and we go to another university. That in itself is good, because I think it's good also to interact with other students in a more physical way, to see how the environment look like. But COVID has, and the announcement of technology, have really put us in a different space, where we can actually get lecturers that co-teach in your class. A lecturer from a university in China or in Ghana or in the States or in Europe or in the UK. And then it starts to bring a different dimension in the teaching of content, because content is universal. And I think it's important that the global perspective comes in, but again, we also need to contextualize it in our environment. And the word that Siobhan used was global, that means global and local combined. But that's the one dimension. The other dimension is obviously to engage with other students in the class. Now, a few weeks ago, I was asked to talk at a PwC conference in Cape Town on higher education and how higher education is changing post-COVID. And the one thing that become actually clear is that a lot of our universities has gone into a blended format of teaching and learning. In fact, at the University of the Free State, we've got a blending teaching and learning model. That means we've got a spectrum of how we engage with our students. Spectrum from face-to-face to online, and in between, in certain modules, we will have emergency teaching and learning, we will open and distance learning, we could flip classroom, virtual reality, robotics, and then online. But the one challenge that we have, not only in South Africa, the African continent and globally, is the fact that the online experience is not an interactive experience. So you can't see your student. You know, if I have, so Siobhan can't see and interact with you. And that's the challenge with online. But not for long, because there's a new dimension and technological development happening, where we're taking the internet in a 3D space, and that is called the Metaverse. So the Metaverse allow you to walk on a campus in France as if you were physically there, to talk to students in the class in France, in a university there, as if that student sat next to you. So that's the development that's starting to happen. And as a university, we need to participate. So internationalization needs to be for everyone. Physical mobility is not going to be able to be there for everyone, because we can't, if we have 42,000 students, you can't send 42,000 students, doesn't even matter of how many years you face that, while they're at the university, to go and visit another university. So we are also motivated to strengthen our internationalization endeavors, because we recognize that our graduates will become more employable, and I did speak to that a little bit earlier, and also better to contribute to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals if they are interculturally competent. And that was the topic that Siobhan talked about, the intercultural competence of students, but also staff members. I think that is for us quite important. So we have committed to strengthen the internationalization process in our strategy 2018 to 2022, Internationalization is a key part of that. Now, as you could hear, the strategy will be completed the end of 2022, the end of this year. We are busy embarking on a new strategy called Vision 130. It's a strategy that will span effectively 12 years from 2023 up to 2034, and by 2034, the University of the Free State is going to be 130 years old, and that's the reason why we coined the phrase Vision 130. And internationalization is a key component. In fact, when we talk about the visibility of our university and our 3 campuses, we need to make sure that we play in a very innovative and creative way in the international space, and internationalization is a key part of that. Now, the Qwaqwa campus has, based on the university strategy, recently adopted its own internationalization strategy, which defines its specific priorities for internationalization, and is developing an enabling structure for the internationalization process, but which also include an internationalization committee. And I want to applaud, through the leadership of Dr. Martin Mandel and also Professor Pearl Sotole and the management team, to move to that part where we now have internationalization strategy. We committed at Qwaqwa to drive that, but we also have an internationalization committee that makes sure that what we committed, we want to do, we in fact deliver. So based on our strategy, we are renewing all administrative processes relating to international students to improve the international student experience further. And we also want to grow our international student numbers. From the continent, we attract a lot of international students from Lesotho, and I was in Lesotho probably about a week, 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? And I said to our guests there in Maseru, but also we visited the National University of Lesotho in Roma, to say that I don't know whether Lesotho should have been part of the Free State or Free State should have been part of Lesotho, but the boundaries actually made that Lesotho is a different country, and therefore the students coming from Lesotho to our university are international students. So we want to grow that from Zimbabwe, Namibia, Ghana, Nigeria, other parts of the African continent, but also other parts of the globe, because that richness that we talked about is for us quite important. Another focus of our internationalization strategy is celebrating our cultural diversity, and these are events like today. We have our International Cultural Diversity Festival, which we implement through our international office programs, and that is integrating our international and local students, and that's quite important. So the Qwaqwa campus is, for me, and hopefully for you too, a shining example of the contribution that internationalization and international cultural diversity can make to the transformation and growth of rural-based campuses. So please allow me to just briefly go back to the origins of the Qwaqwa campus, which was conceived as a consequence of a misguided doctrine of the Grand Apartheid as one of the racially exclusive universities for black South Africans. That is actually when it started. It wasn't called Qwaqwa at that stage, but I think it was University of the North, and this was one of the campuses. So since its incorporation into the University of the Free State in 2003, the campus has undergone phenomenal development. Now, most of you would not have been here in 2003. I certainly wasn't here, but I have seen the development over many years. And I want to applaud the leadership, the different leaderships that was, for me, future-looking, to be able to develop a campus that we have of this caliber. You know, this building wasn't here probably up until a year ago, a year and a half ago. But there was, for me, a development infrastructure, the beauty of the campus, the sustainability component. You know, we're looking at the moment experience load shedding from different ways, either Eskom or the municipality. We are developing our own grid on campus. We've got sustainable water on campus. It's a beautiful campus for me. It's an oasis in this specific region. And that came over many years. And that, for me, that development is something that we should have close to our hearts. And I often say to our staff and to our students, and specifically to our staff leadership and to our student leadership, that we all here are only the custodians of the university. While we're here, we own the university, and when you own something, you want to build it. Because when you leave and you hand over it to the next generation, you want to leave it as a better institution. And we must always remember that our role in building, in fact, Siobhan talked about contribution through internationalization to build a better society. Our role here is, in fact, also to learn to build a better institution. Physically, in bricks and mortar, digitally, but also in what we leave as a vibrant institution. Student life, staff life. That is our role. And if it doesn't happen, we have to ask ourselves the question, why isn't it? And what is my role to make sure that we correct it? So in a highlight of this process, for me, is the partnership with the Appalachian University in the United States, which was recently funded by an 8 million rand grant from the University of the US Embassy in South Africa. Activities arising from this cooperation include the collaborative development of a multidisciplinary master's degree in mountain studies and a master's degree in community development. And besides this, we have joint mountain-to-mountain research projects, and they are conducted in the Appalachian Mountains in the United States and the Maloti Drakensberg Mountains here in South Africa. And the Qwaqwa campus benefits from 5 meteorological stations in the Maloti Drakensberg Mountains that monitor the climate of the highly fragile environment using wireless sensor network. And the ARU and all of the projects related to the ARU are here on the Qwaqwa campus. We had earlier this year a Mountain Research International Conference that the ARU was quite key. In my Lesotho trip with my colleagues, there was a whole group from the ARU that talked to the Lesotho colleagues to strengthen the relationship and the collaboration. And this is, for me, is probably the most active and largest and strongest group in mountain research on the African continent, with a whole series of international linkages. And we all are proud. And I don't call it proud of Qwaqwa. We're obviously proud of Qwaqwa for that. But for me, we're proud because this is part of the University of the Free State. So when I talked about the University of the Free State's contribution. But it actually starts here. Thank you, Martin. And then we also have the Doctoral University Staff Development Project, also with the Appalachian State University and the University of Venda. And that was funded by the Department of Higher Education and Training to the value of about 4.5 million rand. And the project focuses on doctoral training for 10 selective PhD candidates who are staff members at the 2 South African partner universities, and they are predominantly from our designated group, and they are co-supervised by subject specialists from 3 United States universities. And the United States partner universities, which are also located in mountainous areas, predominantly support the program in kind. So it's co-supervision, it's discussions, it's debates, it's where there are colloquia, they participate. And for me, amongst the University of the Free State graduates of the program is Dr. Gray Magaiza, which most of you should know. He's a resident academic here at the Qwaqwa campus, and also the coordinator of the Mountain to Mountain project. And he also serves as head of the Community Development Program. So we are implementing a similar Department of Higher Education and Training funded doctoral staff development project with the University of the Highlands and Islands in Scotland. And again, that's part of the whole international connection. So the South African Water Research Commission awarded a 1.8 million rand grant for an international collaborative project, threats of extreme water events, improving the resilience of the Qwaqwa to the multiple tasks of climate change. And we know what impact climate change have. And it was, for me, quite important as I engaged with one of your professors in the Qwaqwa, in the ARU. He's working on bats, and what impact climate change has got onto bats and where they sort of claim their locations. And obviously the effect of climate change is so crucial, and it impacts everyone. So this particular project, which is led by the Center for Environmental Management, with the involvement of colleagues from our Qwaqwa campus, and this project includes Dresden University of Technology in Germany, and the UFS Disaster Management Training and Education for Africa. And we got Dr. Patrick Utomu, is the ARU champion on this particular project, which also dovetails with the work of the University of the Free State Qwaqwa Risk and Vulnerability Science Center, also a new development within on the Qwaqwa campus. And then the important driver for internationalization on the Qwaqwa campus is the Afro-Montane Research Unit, which I already talked about. So the ARU is globally and regionally engaged and a critical driver for our growing collaboration with the National University of Lesotho. And I did indicate that we visited the University of Lesotho about a week ago. So colleagues from the Qwaqwa campus are continuously strengthening international connectiveness. Recent developments includes the establishment of a strong collaboration with the Ludwigsburg University of Applied Sciences, which includes a virtual exchange program and increased activities in partnership with Lupani State University in Zimbabwe. However, this topic would not be complete without me mentioning the diverse student body on the Qwaqwa campus. Now, I don't know whether you all are aware of, we've got one of our students from Zimbabwe they talked about, but this year, there are 45 registered international students hailing from our SADC countries, namely Cameroon, Ethiopia, Lesotho, Nigeria, Swaziland, and Zimbabwe. So they are fellow students on our Qwaqwa campus, and you need to find out who they are, and we need to engage with them, because as my fellow speaker talked about, it is the value of where you come from that you would like to share different perspective, different experiences, and if we have an open mind to learn from one another, this is an opportunity that we actually should not miss. Not many universities have that opportunity where we have international students that we could learn from. So the international students will stimulate a culturally diverse campus environment that offers students authentic opportunities to learn about themselves and the world they live in. They help to enrich the learning environment with a cultural perspective. I visited Ghana earlier this year, talked to postgraduate students that are enrolled at our university that is currently in Ghana. And it was just for me an eye-opener to engage with the students. They obviously are seeing themselves as University of Free State students in Ghana. And I'm still getting messages from them asking, when are we coming back to Ghana? But it is, for me, and you will engage, as you engage with different cultures, the one thing that I picked up from the Ghanaians is their humility, their humbleness to engage. Obviously, they've got some of the best fruits. I had a pineapple there with Martin that was so sweet. I've never tasted a pineapple that was so nice. Fresh fruits. And those are things that the richness that we have on the continent. And I think we should learn more from them. That they contribute to infusing international perspectives into the delivery of our curriculum. And enrich our university culture through their diverse cultures. Tomorrow morning, I will have a debate with a group of vice-chancellors from Sweden and other vice-chancellors in South Africa on the whole issue of academic freedom and how that impact autonomy and of universities. But I'm pretty sure that there would be rich perspectives from my colleagues from other universities in South Africa, and more so from our presidents or vice-chancellors from Sweden. But it's also a topic that are important for us as a university, because in the international environment, the whole issue of anti-intellectualism is coming to the fore. So what that actually means is that more societies, and surely politicians around the globe, questions the knowledge that university produces. They don't believe in those knowledge. And therefore, the question that universities should ask, how do we regain trust of the different societies that we serve? And you can't necessarily answer that question if you don't look at the global and you don't look at the local and you don't engage with your societies. So that for me is quite important, and therefore you're going to have different perspectives and we need to learn from one another. So the rich international collaboration on the campus, talking about the Qwaqwa campus, the presence of international students that I talked about, and its internationalization at home activities contribute to creating an atmosphere that is conducive to excellence in teaching and learning on the campus. So therefore, colleagues, students, staff members, my colleagues on the platform, in conclusion, let us take time to appreciate the journey of this campus for what it has been, what it is, and what it is yet to bring. And all of our role is to look what it is now and to say what can a campus such as Qwaqwa still progress and be built towards. So internationalization is of internationalizing the space while navigating new frontiers through shared connections across all our cultures. So let us continue to work together with our international partners to inspire excellence, and ultimately to transform lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Peterson. Yeah, it was, yeah, that one. English, it goes away. And now, again, thank you, Prof. Peterson. And now it's that time, that I think people have been waiting for, to ask a couple of questions. And please, by the way, let's go PA more, please. Just basically your comments, inputs, questions on international cultural diversity, and basically the content that we have given today. Anyone who has a question, I'm just going to note people either have questions, comments. If you don't, as a teacher, I'm going to give you questions and ask you questions. Okay, I don't want to assume that we don't have questions, but it seems like we don't have quite a lot from our side. But again, you're not limited to obviously forwarding your questions, comments, and to the organizing team. And again, last chance, is there anyone who have a question? I know, isilos te nibezwe, but this time around. Okay. Let's move on then because of that. And we're just gonna, the very last item, almost last item, the performance, right? By the gospel choir. Please bless us with that, Yeah, I trust you. Yenzi, where are you?
Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Sigirile abanda mutua wela. Abanda mutua wela. Sigirile abanda mutua wela. Abanda mutua wela. Abanda mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela.
Rineriba pala awela. Rineriba pala.
Sigirile abande mutua wela. 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 Kanako egui haulisio. Unali mutu yantaranteke. Unali mutu yantoboketa. Unali mutu yantaranteke. Unali mutu yantoboketa. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Kanako engui haulisio. Unali mutu yantaranteke. Unali mutu yantoboketa. Unali mutu yantaranteke. Unali mutu yantoboketa. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Sanala wenali ratolaka. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Sigirile abande 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 mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela. Rineriba pala mutua wela.
Bathandwa besteli ndlela sikhulule.
Nisihambe.
Umude makhaya.
Umude makhaya.
Bathandwa besteli ndlela
sikhulule. Nisihambe.
Umude makhaya.
Umude makhaya.
Kulethi phakama mzala.
Okay, thank you very much to the Gospel Choir for almost the last time now. Thank you for everything that you have given us. And now, to the very last item of today, I am going to give... Hey, Dr. Dube, they only said senior lecturer here. What happened? But, yeah, no, man. Demotions are everywhere. But I'm going to allow Dr. Dube to come to the platform and give us the very closing... I'm kidding, by the way, he's not demoted, I mean. To give us the closing remarks of the day. And from myself, thank you very much. It has been wonderful. I am Supermanja Joseph Shabangu from Student Governance and Development and Student Media, apparently I've been told. Yeah, from me, Ushabangu Mpelu Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Mine is a very, very short presentation
because I know I stand between now and lunch, so I don't want to spoil anything. I want to take this opportunity, firstly, to thank the Rector and the Vice Chancellor. It's also good to see you here, and we were together in Lesotho. Thank you, Dr. Martin. I think things are happening. I think your office is doing very well to support us. There is always an opportunity for you to assist, and thank you very much. We really appreciate. And I'm sure we can see that the internationalization on Qwaqwa campus is actually growing, and we really appreciate your office. Thank you, Cornelius, for always being available to assist us, and I'm sure you can see some growth within the Qwaqwa campus in terms of internationalization and so on. As I conclude, colleagues, I've got a document that I'm going to share with you, which is the Qwaqwa internationalization strategy that has been approved, and what we aim to do as Qwaqwa campus to ensure that we are in the international picture. And I'm sure that you are going to get more insights, and particularly I'm interested, especially in future with the SRC, so that we engage the students on this strategy, so that they also understand that they have got a part to play in this strategy, especially in terms of even international visits and so on. We want to see part of our students from the Qwaqwa campus also making it in other international platforms in terms of application of visas, in terms of funding and so on. So we will come to you and explain some of these things, because we will actually want you to be part of it. It should not be always us, the academics, that travel to other countries, but we also want students to be part of it. And again, next month, is it on the 13th, we are also meeting here as an international office to showcase what other opportunities are available for staff and students. Please join us. We'll have virtual platforms from different embassies that are going to showcase what they offer to the South African students and also other international students. And lastly, I want to thank you, the local organizing committee, and I'm sure they are doing an excellent job. I mean, even when I'm not available, things are actually happening, and I want us to really give a round of applause for the work that they are doing. Thank you for being available and making sure that our programs are very successful, and we really appreciate you. And everyone else who have joined us, please, we want to thank you, and the last thing is that we have got an office where our intern is available. Where is our intern who is there for all other international engagement? There is our intern, Jalefa, there, who is going to is our main contact person in the office there. And if there is anything that you want, you can go through him. If he cannot assist you, I'll be available to assist you on anything that has to do with internationalization and everything. So thank you very much, Principal and everyone else, for attending. And shall I, as a coordinator, to say the meeting is adjourned? Thank you.